This is Dr. Justina Agnieszka Chevalier. It is second part on individual pursuit of optimization to the maximum happiness, enjoyment, declared in many statistics later on as achieved, to enable person to pursue specific person for shared life and for nesting and mutual provision based on two from all lifelong relationships that person determines that the other opposite gender person in time and efforts is number one drive in proportion to the occurrence of that person being in distress, in pain, in need of basic needs, including life-saving and provision of safety, as opposed to all others. And that is in direct proportion related to, in absence or in presence of any love or a sexual ideation, to a person that can provide a source, a child. And then it distributes that in a sexual pursuit for others depending on reciprocity as potential chances. However, that is in different way provided because of a basic instinct based on that love maximum, not instance of occurrence, not first, not last, not something in between, but maximum love for one person in mind and body manifested as a pursuit instinctive one of well-being of that person when in distress. And second presence in that is suppressed only by suffering in that person, sexual drive for that specific person that enables urge and pursuit of that person's well-being and safety always, as opposed to harm, as if that person was an obstacle. To impede the last one, we need to know that we are non-rivals in such pursuit, and that is how it is formed. Maximum capacity of a person matching a brother, a colleague, maximum capacity of a female matching a colleague at work. It means that that person, if the opposite gender partner has different unique skills and different unique capacities, will in presence of danger be complementing, or that is a rivalry for an actual deburdening of one another, forming family in pursuit of safety, first for family, instinctive one, and then for all others also, when capacitated, providing unique services and needing such services in reciprocity. And so that is why, for instance, if a person does not provide basic needs and reserves right to pursue a person just for luxury and waiting for others to provide those, person lacks sexual drive based in love for that person, concern when that person is suffering with that person's well-being. And that is, it simply means that person is not more than others, and it is in actual then no chance type of as occurrence if someone else arrives forced by anxiety, forced by love that person to provide. And so that is the video topic. In presence of all of possible skills, education, we capacitate that person to provide for self and for all of us what that person has to offer, and every single person has such, to function in society to the best of the interest. And then we need to understand that all of these skills, when basic needs and basic so-called safety in the area, no fight or flight to save lives or escape from flood is present, that impedes in biology, arousal, and impedes feelings of love, that creates then use of all of education, all of physical and mental capacities, all of obtained degrees that resulted in such formation, to pursue first assurance that the minuscule even harm of that person, a person has urge to run and assure that that person is okay each time if the others are in similar distress, regardless of that person's lack or presence of appreciation. And that is one. When we pursue another person for a life partner, sexual partner, we need to make sure that all of maximum skills and capacitation and all of what we are used first as a love declaration and declaration on actual state of pursuit as if it was already espoused of another person's well-being and survival, as opposed to all others. A person we are forced to assure in case, for instance, that man became a husband, that person, if not pursuing self sexually, to ask out, to provide, to offer a cigarette, to offer a glass of wine, to offer, for instance, a walk in the most distinguished of the areas, that the person first pursues well-being of self when that person has maximum capacity, whenever distress occurs based on basic instinct. So the person will not ditch self for a work colleague when pregnant or when incapacitated, and vice versa. And secondly, we assure that maximum capacity obtained, person having all, whatever that is, that person wishes to provide all in front of all the others based on an instinct, in hopes that the other one would do the same, and faith based on that reciprocity of pursuit of mutual well-being, as opposed to based on an instinct, delegating that to somebody else in physical presence, creating that bond of gratefulness, or family, and pursuing that person wants to assure well-being, not to impede provision of such by somebody else, including family, because if such is the case, the person is committing crime. And we all also know we cannot provide discapacitation of a person by provision of remediate services, such as food and things like that, calling that person less in fear of being less loved, because you see, that creates in that person latent potential to at all times threaten marriage, and rivalry is formed as such, knowing potential and actual physical and mental capacity to save life, witnessing such at least once, we know that that person pursues in presence of all, use of all of such to assure of well-being of self, if you're such person, or assure of well-being of that significant other that you would like to declare as official spouse, as opposed to all others. When that person is at best and not in distress or lacking something, that person pursues offering first of all of own luxuries, whatever that is, in hopes, even if all is dedicated to that person, for all others to witness that out of all of colleagues, most capacitated presidents and all of other specialists, God included, the other person, if that person would accept, one hopes that it would mean love declaration for life to share that with that other person in similar instinct. Meaning, if you have, like in that coffee example, $100 million, and you pursue a person to buy for the $100 million a sculpture because that is the favorite of that person, even a slightest chance of acceptance of that sculpture of that person will mean that you will have life partner, because that person accepting in front of others, placing a name on that, declares love for you and wanting to have your children, as opposed to you competing in own instincts when it is that I can provide a bit less for that person and provide more, or blame it in some extremes from even eating and provide it to someone else. One person will have, luxurious meal, and to the other you will handle a flyer and hope that that person mistaken to own sense of worth will be loving you in gratefulness. You see, that for sex and relationship in reciprocity, for esteem and love of that person as a you maximum partner is not enough. And so Enabling others, giving means and funds also as work, creates for all of society another standard. It means if my brother provided, for instance, for me a Mercedes, and I drive that Mercedes, then that means that my potential spouse has in generosity corresponding to what that person possesses, degree of sacrifice, personal sacrifice, in chances that if I rejected, for instance, such offering, such gift, offered in personal way, as opposed to disguised as work or something else, that if I accept it, that means that I want to marry that person. I want that person to be as my spouse, driven around by me in that car, invisible way, because that is my spouse and that is how he wants to. Or I want that person to actually pick me up and drive me around, and then drive our children based on maximum love and desire derived from that. That luxury and division of goods is based on couples divisions, and matching up to the best of the standards in lifelong, mean also in education skills and in love declarations, is simply expecting same degree of love and sacrifice as mother, father, ex-spouses and as ex-boyfriends, in not only in hunger or when in grave life danger, but also when that person needs help, as opposed to enforcing such impression. But when that person having all, or having all provided by self, wants to accept all of it and keep it for possible children or for later, in if sex and love impedes pursuit of goods, keep it for later to use it for one another. That is what it means, that rivalry in society. Rivalry now in terms of man and woman consists of demonstration that self and that other person for one another prefer one another, and in that preference it means that on my mind, maximum capacity of my spouse and maximum capacity of mine in degree of a compatibility, like Marie Curie, Skłodowska and Skłodowski, who were both physicists, chemists also, that provision of capacity of those two together at the same time, they had the same degree of capacitation, different specialties in different ways. That provision of such makes those two deburdened. So for instance, if a woman is pregnant or there is a upcoming danger, such as somebody misusing their work, that one or the other person can go and work deburdening that person to the maximum of the capacity, and also results in distribution of skills. And so that is why we use then all of possible skills in practice as personal, in disregard of actual well-being of intentionally of all others, love declaration, so that it is not attributed, not in this regard to do harm, but it is attributed to pursuit of lifelong bonding relationships, in hopes that person accepting it in degree and dedication of all maximum skills actually wants to and has faith that if that man took, for instance, all of her possessions, took all of what she has created, to return and keep them in own work and in own professions, or to have her enabled to pursue in loving kindness her preferred partner, which is then a source of social esteem. And next to remember is important. If we remedy shyness by placing females in disguised pursuit of such female as a sexual life partner and children bearer, as against that person's will, as assistant, and person prefers to sing, that person will sing on the side and will know that you do not love that person in fact, and will prefer singing to love and sex with you. and to resent also that activity as only provision of finances. While if you enable person to think instead of that capacity and think at work as source of income, that person may waive work and pursue that thinking only for you as love declaration, so that in reciprocity, when there is a relationship and wanting, you waive the same your profession and pursue sex as source of children and well-being of family as interactions.